All right, everyone, we are live. We're here at another episode of Cafecito and Conversation with my friend Vanessa. I am so excited for all of you to get to know her and meet her. And we have an amazing conversation that we're going to bring to the table. So let's just dive in. Vanessa, let's get started by having everyone get to know you and know who you are and what you do.
Hola, Domenica. I'm so happy to be here. Tan contenta. So, my name is Vanessa Codorniu, and I am a psychic medium, a clinical hypnotist, a soul business mentor. And I've been, we're all intuitive. I've been doing this work, working with folks, uncovering their intuition, helping them break through their ancestral patterns to tap into their ancestral power for years. I do it through ritual ceremony, holding circles, courses online, and through hypnosis. And so I think, it's been over 20 years of doing the work and then online, supporting myself fully from this work, 9 years. So it's been an incredible time. And I see that there's more and more conversations about spirituality, energy healing, wellness, and ancestral patterns.
Right. That's amazing. I love it. I think it's always great when we can do something that we love and have that freedom and flexibility to bless others throughout it. So 9 years. That's amazing. Congratulations. That's something that's a great accomplishment.
Thank
And
you.
so, in the spirit of cafecito and conversation, I always love asking, what is your favorite beverage of choice?
So, my favorite beverage of choice, I have to admit,
Mhm.
is mate. So, I have mate cocido, right?
Okay.
And that's what I'm having here right now. The cafecito is only when somebody's reading my coffee grinds.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
No, I
mate.
love it. So, you think that I would be all into el cafecito, but it really gets me a little like hyper, a little very awake too much that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And so ahorita my beverage of choice is golden milk. And I think last time we were talking, I had mentioned that. And I'm so stuck on it. Turmeric, cinnamon, it's just so good. And that is my favorite beverage of choice ahorita because with this, it's a little windy over here in California and it's cold and it just hot steamed milk. It just feels so good.
I
So
love
that's
golden milk
what we
too. One of
yeah,
my students sent it to me, and she was like, "You've got to try this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is amazing."
right. I was like, where has it been all my life? I've been missing out. Y luego con el turmeric, I just love how my body has been reacting to it. Like, I feel like I get a lot of inflammation and it really has helped me not feel so much stiff. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely love it. But I want to dive in with ancestral healing because I feel like, especially in the Latinx community, that there's a stereotype that we battle with, like, brujeria and working on crystals. Like, that's just things we don't talk about. But I feel that the more and more I get educated, I have friends that are really wanting to honor their ancestors and really practice those rituals and pass down those traditions to friends and family and their children. So I would love to just spark that conversation with you and really just kind of find out what really sparked the passion behind it.
Also, I love this conversation, and gracias for having me here to talk about it. I'm also the biz bruja. I came out of my business first as the urban priestess, right? Because I was initiated as a priestess like when I was 22. Pero
Okay.
con tiempo, my spirit was like, you have to reclaim the word bruja. You have to reclaim the word bruja because
Mhm.
what does it really mean, right, to be a bruja? We think of evil, we think of darkness, we think of alguien nos va a hacer un hechizo, some spell, una maldad. They're jealous of us, all these things. When you really break it down, una bruja was a person que tenía conocimiento, who knew things about herbs, who knew how to heal. And remember, back in the day before the medical profession took off, especially Western medicine, right? Eso es lo que teníamos. We had our connection to the earth, our connection to the cycles of the moon. So it was very natural. And even you have the Farmer's Almanac that helps us plant even now, right? Tells you put the seeds in this time. So this is something very natural in all cultures, and also in our Latinx culture, that we used to go with the flows of the river, of the ocean, of the earth. You know, and I'm not downing religion. I'm not putting it down. But if you study history, all of the major Judeo-Christian religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam came in, and they kind of wanted to squash out indigenous knowledge and say, this is the real way, this is the only way. And so I'm not putting down any religion, but I'm also saying, let's be conscious that a lot of the things that we're attracted to, la hierbita, like, you know, sometimes you have a stomach ailment and mommy gives you peppermint oil or a peppermint tea, de repente, or té de manzanilla. These are things that are like passed on for 500 years. Entonces, this word of being a bruja, it's really about being able to tap into our own inner powers to empower ourselves and empower others. Y te digo algo, mucha gente, a lot of people that they call bruja were just, again, regular women who were helping each other give birth, right? Take care of each other's children, organize food processes, community processes, and it was also anti-oppression. And so una verdadera bruja was anti-oppression, was very much about indigenous knowledge, and not about putting down anyone or harming anyone. But when we start to bring in the devil, like la historia, we always have a scapegoat. We always blame something. And so that's kind of like what happened. And so for me, I reclaimed it a couple of years ago. And what it really means, like, I don't go around making spells, is that I'm tapping into my inner powers to help you and everybody else tap into their inner power. And it's about reclaiming what's already there. Porque, you know, we've been brainwashed through colonization, government, religion, to give our power away, to think that we have to look this way or be a size 0 or be like blonde or have blue contacts or have blue eyes or whatever. And again, not putting down anyone who is light and has blue eyes or light hair, but we've been brainwashed to center whiteness. And when we start to reclaim our indigenous roots, we get this pride, right? Yes. And we also heal. We heal. I have a lot of students, muchos estudiantes who come to me, and mostly are BIPOC, they're mostly Latinx, of all, you know, races. And they come to me and they're like, oh, you know, mi gran abuelita used to do la limpia con el huevo. She used to do the cleansing with the egg. And then, like, suddenly she became religious, everybody became religious, and nobody did anything.
Right.
These are tools that were passed down so we could support ourselves, right? So we could heal ourselves from anxiety, from stress. And so that's kind of like where the passion came from. My parents were very open. They were Catholic, but they supported me. My grandparents on both sides had guides, spirit guides, but yet they still believed in Jesus and still, you know, we went to church.
Right.
I feel like just because you believe in spirit, that you couldn't also believe in Christ or believe in La Virgen Maria, the Virgin Mary. And so we can unite both. It doesn't have to be and or, right? And so an ancestral healing comes in when we notice in our lives that there are certain patterns. What I see a lot in the Latinx community vienen and they're like, Vanessa, I have the imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
I'm educated AF. I am doing it. I'm out there. But then I get into the corporate world, I get into the space, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I need more. Maybe. And when we trace it, you know, somewhere along the line, our ancestors were told, well, you're not good enough because you need to have this education, or you're not good enough, or you're not, or they had to fight, you know, coming into new countries, learning new languages. And so when people say that to me, or they say to me, Vanessa, no relationship works for me. Every man is bad. Every man abandons you. And I'm like, And I'm like, who else abandoned people in your family? Oh, my mother, my father abandoned us, my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. So it's like generations.
Right.
So what we're looking at is generational mindsets, generational habits, or generational truths that are actually limiting us.
Right. No, and that's so powerful because it really does get passed on. I feel like whatever is not healed generations back, it just keeps going and manifesting until really, like, you get that awareness and you're like, wait a minute, this feels like it's not coming from me, feels like it's attached to something. And I always say, I always kind of joke around and say, okay, I was the chosen one because it stops here. Like,
Yes.
I'm gonna break this stuff off me. And I know it's gonna be hard, but I rather break it because I have a little one behind me that doesn't need that. And so I rather do the deep work and figure this out so I can free up that space for her, porque it's not an easy thing to do, but it is really, like, once you do it, especially that imposter syndrome. So I couldn't understand for the longest time that even with all my education, you nailed it, all my education, like all my leadership experience, me, all these opportunities that I've been invited to be part of, really gave me that credibility and was the evidence that that I belonged in spaces. And, whether it be in the community or my professional career, but I still felt like, why am I here? I would doubt that. And I would feel very like less than everybody else. And then somebody put a name to it and said, Domenica, that's imposter syndrome. And I've never had heard that term. And I looked into it and I was like, oh, that was exactly what was going on. And I really had to do some inner work to really break that off of me, because it was like, when I stood back, I'm like, this is silly. All this hard work and this education, and here I am questioning it. No, like, and then really what I started really feeling was that relentless belief in myself.
Yes. Because you freed up. So what happens is, I mean, when we were colonized, 400 or 500 years ago, right? And as Latinx, we're a mix. We're a mix of all the races. We're a mix of different cultures. Cuando eso ocurrió, when that happened, it started to impact and reverberate throughout. Even our parents, our grandparents who are brave and they left countries and they learned languages, there was still esa energía. I mean, I grew up with my mom, who was a journalist in her country, right? Who kept saying to me, hacete perdonar la presencia. I mean, my God, okay? Like, have people forgive your presence. Why is my presence so insulting in a space, right? And so my mom didn't mean it, but coming into a country where she didn't speak the language, she'd be like, hacete perdonar la presencia. So what happened is I was so humble about myself, and not that I should be arrogant, but being really proud of our accomplishments, standing in them, and being able to just be who we are, like you said. And so it took work for me as well to be able to stand in it. And another level of it that I find, at least for healers or coaches or guides or even speakers, some of our family members were killed for speaking out. Some of our family members, especially women, right? Because the oppression against women is in all races and cultures, and we know about machismo. Right? We know that machismo is big. Entonces, ¿quién eres tú para hablar así? Who are you to speak like that? Tú eres una niña, o tú eres, siéntate así, be like this. You can't. And so even those machismo energies that we've inherited even kept me a little bit, as big mouth as I am, of holding back, right? Because I was doing my business for so long, part-time, but it took a lot of healing, because my family was very spiritual, but they were like, no lo hagas en público, don't do it in public. What are they going to think? What are they going to do to you? What could happen to you in this space? And when I started, there was no Wi-Fi. And so it's a whole different world. Now people are reclaiming their spirituality. They're reclaiming their gifts, their ancestral, because there's like a million of us out there talking about this every day. But when I was doing this, you'd be lucky if había una curandera in where I lived, or una sanadora, and my mom knew techniques. And so each generation, like you said, we are the chosen one. And I know that I'm the chosen one in my family. I know that I'm the first female who graduated college in this country. I'm also the first female who created her business and kept it, because my mom started but closed it. Right? Yes, and successfully supporting myself. And also the first female to use her intuitive abilities, who lead with that, not to hide it, right? But to lead with the intuitive abilities. And so that's what we're doing right now. And, somebody asked me the other day, what's the difference between an ancestral pattern and a habit? I was like, a habit is something that maybe you didn't have in the beginning, but it became easier, right? Like, I don't have to work out, or I don't have to do this. It became easier to just ignore something. But an ancestral pattern is something that if you look at your family, you'll be able to see, oh, this one got to this point and held back. Like I can look at my family. My grandmother was a great singer and actress. And when she got invited to a big theater in Buenos Aires, Argentina, her husband, my grandfather said, no, mi amor, eso es para las prostitutas, right? That's not for women of ill repute, right? Because you didn't go around dancing in the 1930s. If you were from a, good family or a decent family, she was from a decent family. She gave up singing and dancing. And then my grandfather said to me when I was 19, I said, Abuelito, what would be your advice for me? And he goes, get a person who loves you and will let you be who you are, because I regret it. When he told me, I regret that I told your grandmother not to do it. And my mother also was on radio, TV. She did all her work and then decided to settle down, have family, and leave. So those are already an ancestral pattern where a woman is talented and gifted in something and then pulls back because of the pressure of society of what it means to be a woman. So if any of you are watching and you're having those type of patterns, that's an ancestral pattern.
No, I love how you broke that down, because I was in San Jose. It's about 2 hours from where I live, and Oprah came to speak, and it was a tour. And I thought, oh, I want to go see her. And she said something so profound to me. And it was on the parallel side, like, find your common threads in your life and those that came before you, and you'll start to see those patterns. And so, she basically said the same thing that you just said. And I really was like, oh, mind blown. I was mind blown, because I thought that makes so much sense. And I started to realize that was really when the spark came of realizing, wait, am I following what I think society has molded me into and told me that I need to be? And how my very much influenced by my pattern or my parents of that traditional marriage of, like, my dad very much, machista, the woman stays at home, even though my mom did work seasonally, but pretty much she was home for the most part. And I was like, what am I not paying attention to? And I started to question if my background is in education, if that was really what I wanted to do. And I started noticing the patterns of entrepreneurship. And really, like, I've always sold something, or always wanted to, like, do something that made somebody's life better, by selling that thing or pointing someone in that direction. And so it was very much even down to selling friendship bracelets. Like, I remember making a whole bunch of those and selling them to my friends, just $1, just to be able to connect and belong. And we all have these really cool friendship bracelets. And so I love that you're bringing that thought to the table, because a lot of times we get lost in that identity that we've created through these things that we feel that we need to be, but who we're not. Right?
Absolutely. And there's another aspect too, like, and I love the example that you gave, right? And that what Oprah said is, like, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, by the way. And there's a lot of entrepreneurship by men in my family, like generations coming in from Italy or coming in from Spain, coming in from different areas. Pero I just wanted to help people.
Yes.
And in 19, I wrote a letter and I said, God, use me as an instrument. Use my spirit, use my creativity, use my mind. And I was already receiving messages from my guides. I mean, very, very practical things, right? Like my debate coach would not take me to the national debate tournament, though I had consistently ranked top 3 in every tournament, because it's like women didn't win. And back in the day, at that point, women had not been top 5 yet in the country. And I was crying by La Virgencita, and I was in a small Catholic church, college, and I was there by the Virgin crying with the mist around me, very dramático, muy dramático, like, Dios mío, Dios mío. And I'm crying, and I hear, Vanessa, you have to go to the Air Force Academy National Debate Championship. You're going to be top 5. And I'm like, what? Because I'm there in the dark by myself. I ran, I got my coins, because it was back in the day, with the payphone, calling my mommy. But can you pay? Can you take me to, then I ran over to my partner. Can you do it? Because you're crazy, but I'll go with you. And then I go to my coach and I'm like, I have to go. We're going to be top 5. And he's like, you're insane. We went, guess what? We were top 3 in the country. And I'm telling you, we debated Harvard. We debated this. We were freshmen. And so being a woman, listening to your inner voice has for so many of us caused us drama, trouble. Estás loca, you're crazy, estás sensible, you're sensitive, you're to this, you're to that. And I can say that one of the things for me that I had to break through is also this idea that we can't make money off our spiritual gifts, right? Because if tú eres buena, or if you're a real God person, you would just give it away for free. Like the church doesn't accept money all the time, right?
I've heard that. Yes.
Right? So there's this belief like martyrdom. El martirio nos hace buena, because we've been trained that way. We who do we honor? The saints were sacrificed, were burned, were killed, were martyred. We have Jesus on the cross. We have people suffering. So we've internalized that to be a good person, we have to suffer.
Right.
And so I'm going to tell you, in the beginning of my work, I was doing circles, having 30 or 40 women in my apartment in Queens in New York City. It was very tight, a diverse group of people. And I was doing for free, cleansing for free, doing for free. And it wasn't until I was laid off several times that I crawled out of a car accident. Like all these things happened to me. It was like, Vanessa, you've got to go full time in your work. Break this energy of para ser buena, to be a good person, you have to give it away. It's not about servitude. It's about service. That means we get to be abundant.
Yes, girl. Yes.
We get to be abundant. We get to be abundant. We get to be sensual, sexual. We get to be intelligent. We get to be spiritual. We get to rise. And so I want to talk about it porque muchas mujeres are very like, I help everybody. But then in the end, they're drained.
Right. No, and you know what? That is so relevant because we fight that. We fight that. There was someone that had I posted something on Instagram that she had private messaged me afterwards and said, Domenica, I needed that. And I did a TikTok video out of all things because I was trying to keep up with the trend. And I talked about charging your worth and, all that sacrifice of going to school, all those credentials, or even all that time invested away from your family that you're honing your craft. Like that is worth to bring into the table. And it's like, you can't pay the bills by offering free. And like the people around you can't expect to have free because they know you or because they're friends with you. They need to honor you and honor that work because it's time and commitment and sacrifice.
Absolutely. And that's where I think like we are the ones who are changing that. It is sacrifice, but let's make it less servitude.
Yes.
Let's make it less servitude. And Latinas, how we're good for that. We are so, yo puedo hacer esto, I could do this, I could do that. Yeah, I could do it. I mean, my mom used to like throw down in the kitchen with her long nails, go clean the bathroom, throw down, and then put on a glamorous dress, some fake eyelashes, and the party would start. And she had done everything. And you're sitting there like, wow. Right? Like she would do it all and still look good doing it. And so it's like, we've been trained to be that way. And it's exhausting. And it has to come a point where we either ask for help, we learn to ask for help. We also learn to charge our worth, right? And also know that these natural gifts we have are actually the way that we're meant to make a living. Because I always tell my students, I'm like, there's not an eagle flying high through the sky going, hey, look at me, my wings are so cool. I'm flying, right? The eagle is just flying because it's an eagle. But it's the same thing with us. We're doing what we do naturally. You speak, you're guiding, you're leading. I do what I do and I teach and I guide. But it's natural. Before I even charged, I was doing it. And so it's like we have to go through this thing where we look at what we do naturally as something special.
Yes. No, that is so true. And I love that you use the analogy of the eagle because the eagle just sits in its power. It's just is flying, the wings spread, and it just just commands that presence. It just automatically radiates off it, right? And that's really how we can come to the tables, but somehow we got lost. And I want to touch on the intuitive part because I feel like sometimes as females, we lost that ability to like listen to that voice or, follow that intuition. So do you have any guidance or any thoughts behind that on how we can tap back into that?
Thank you so much. Great question. So first I want to invite everybody to remember we're all intuitive. Okay. So we're all intuitive, right? Every one of us. If you want to look at it from the lens of God or a divine presence, we can say we're all extensions of God, children of God. So we have that. If you're more science minded and you don't believe in that, you can say that we're all made of energy. And so we are picking up and sending out invisible information every day. One of the ways that I invite people to really tap into their intuition is to spend some time alone, because when we're around others, we get pulled, right? Oh, this one wants this. I can feel they want this from me, right? As an emotional intuitive, as an empath. And then we start trying to fulfill everybody's expectations. Spend a little time alone, even if you have little kids, lock yourself in the bathroom, mommies out there, right? And sit down and breathe, right? Literally allow yourself to feel your booty on the seat. Allow yourself to just follow your breath in and out, and just ask your higher self, your deepest knowing. And if you believe in God or a deity, bring that into the mix as well. And just say, what do I need to know right now? And as we start to shut off the world and go deeper within ourselves, we're going to get, girl, you need to drink more water. It could be very simple. You need to get out, take a walk, stretch. And some of my students, because I teach this, they're like, oh, it's so simple. I don't like what I got. But I'm like, mamita, before we can run, we need to crawl. And so allow for yourself to get maybe the one word, the sensation of peace. And then I would say, if you're really serious about it, you could get a little journal or a digital document, and every day do that for a second, for 2 minutes, what do I need to know? What do I need to know? And the more you do it, pay attention to how you receive the information. Some of us hear, right? So we call that clairaudience, where we have clear hearing. Some of us see, clairvoyance, we see things. Some of us know. We're just like, I don't know how I know, but this is happening, or this is the way I have to go, claircognizance.
That's me.
Right, me too, and then makes sense for you. You're like, this is what we're doing. But I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because people get mad when we say things like we know what we're talking about, though we don't know why, but it's true. Right? People have gotten mad at me. They're like, how do you know? And I was like 6 years old. I don't know, but I know. And then it came true. And then there's clairsentience, when we feel in our bodies. And so we have a lot of the different gifts. Some of us are a combination. Some of us are clearly one thing. And we need to understand, because sometimes fear gets in the way. And I know people who call me, oh my God, I have a fear. I have this thing. Something's going to happen to my child. And I'm like, when you first got that feeling, was it calm? No. And they're like, up here, anxiety, breathing high, tension. That's not your intuition.
Okay.
That is an anxiety. That is a deep fear. Could be an ancestral pattern. Maybe something happened to many generations of kids. We need you to take a deep breath, to ground, and ask, what do I need to know about my child? Or what do I need to know about my situation? I can tell you that intuition comes in repeated. Intuition comes in calmly. Now, how you react to that is different.
Right.
Because, like, let's say I knew that my mom, my dad, and my brother were going to pass pretty quickly. I didn't know the time frame. But when I first got the information, I was very calm. It was later when it started to happen, I was like, and very upset.
Right.
Agitated that I couldn't do anything about it. But we need to pay attention to those things that come in calmly, because your deepest knowing is eternal. Your deepest knowing, your higher self, isn't so invested in your everyday life. It's your human self that's like, they have to live, or they have to do this, or I have to get that job. Your deepest knowing knows more and sees things in a bigger picture, right? Like we talk about the ego. It's your going over, going, no te preocupes, you're going to lose this job, but girl, you're going to get a better one. But you're like, how? The human part of you, right? You're like, como? And that beautiful intuition, that guidance is like, this is your time to chill. And so just take time apart, pay attention to how the information comes through, and even ask yourself the question of, were there times when I knew something or felt something and I didn't pay attention? Then I'm like, oh, I should have. And then ask yourself, when were the times where I got that feeling or that knowing, I did it and it came through and I was like, yeah. And those are some ways that we could start to understand and accept ourselves, right?
No, definitely. I love how you just broke it down. And I love that you pointed out that sometimes we have those gifts in a combination, because when you said the body, I was like, oh, that's me too. My body speaks to me and I have to pay attention to it. And it's quite interesting. And when I started to realize that was when I woke up with my, el brazo just frozen. I couldn't move it. And and I was like, what is going on here? And that's when I really realized, like, wait a minute, I need to pay attention to what's going on, and the way that I'm feeling. And ever since then, yeah, I can pretty much, my body tells me things like, nope, Domenica, nope, you're done. Relax, take a step back. So it is so true.
And I'll tell you, Domenica, that there's so many women who book sessions with me and they're like, I knew that I wasn't supposed to marry this person, right? Or I knew I wasn't supposed to take this job. And I mean, once we step into it, we have to look at the lesson of it and not beat ourselves up, right? Because everything is a lesson, everything is a learning, everything is an invitation para crecer, it's for us to grow. But it's so, so important. And I do want to add that your intuition, especially if you pay attention to it and allow it, will come through at any time. I was already working my part-time business for a long time when I got laid off the day before surgery in October. I had a breakup with who I thought was my soulmate. This is in 2012.
Okay.
And then December 21st, 2012 was supposed to be the end of the Mayan calendar. And I had a blog. People were writing me, Vanessa, is it going to be the end of the world? I'm like, no, it may be the end of some part of your world. There's a transformation, right? So I was answering my blogs.
Right.
And
Right.
that morning I get into a family vacation that we're going, and I go to get into the car and my mom goes, I have a bad feeling. And I said, so do I. She's like, I'm going to pray. I'm like, I'm going to do energy healing and Reiki in the car. We started driving and about an hour and a half into it, around 6:45, because we got an early start, I'm laid out with my feet between the two front, my dad's driving, my mom's in the front. I'm laid out like this with my feet. And I hear, Vanessa, sit up straight so you don't break your back. So I'm like, okay. And half asleep and I'm listening. Now I'm sitting. They're like, make sure that they have their, safety, their belts on. My dad did. My mom didn't. She put it on. And then take off this big bracelet because you're going to hurt your wrist with it. So I had this it off. And then I'm like, let me sleep. I closed my eyes. Suddenly there was an explosion. The tire exploded. We started to careen into a truck. And I'm sitting there holding on because, by the way, I didn't have a seatbelt. And I'll tell you why later. I figured it out. So I'm there like this, holding on, right, to my seat in front of me. And I'm like, oh, Dios mío, I didn't go full time. I didn't go into the world. I've been doing it forever, but I haven't done it. And I kept hearing, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Everybody's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. My father was able to turn the wheel. And then we started rolling. And look, I didn't have a seatbelt. I'm like rolling like this, slow motion. I keep hearing everything's fine. You're going to do your work. You have to go full time. No more hiding. And we land. My parents are hanging from their seatbelts. I'm sitting, on the ceiling, like surrounded by glass. And I kept telling Spirit, pull me out of the body before I die. I thought I was dead. I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't like, can you let me live? I was just like, can I stay and help them when they go? And there we were. And I didn't know if I was dead or alive. And everything's like, everything's fine. You just have to go full time. And I'm like, that's what they tell you, right? Here in a car accident, this is what they're telling you. And I hear my brother screaming because they were in a car in front of us and behind. And I'm like, I'm alive. I helped them get out. I crawled out. And I can tell you that after that, I went to the hospital because they were like, you didn't have a seatbelt. They put this thing on me. They put me out. There was nothing wrong with me. And so just know that if you ever hear, don't go down that street. If you ever sense, don't walk in that room. If you ever feel anything, hey, sit up straight. Because there are so many days that I get up now, put my feet on the wooden floor where I live, right, my home. And I cry sometimes a little bit because I'm like, I'm so blessed. I'm in one piece. If I didn't listen, that car would have been rolling with me and it flopping from one side to the next. I also realized a month later that I had a surgery earlier that I was like, why didn't I have a seatbelt on? I realized I had MRSA in my body, in my uterus, by the way. That's where they had operated me. The doctor didn't see the paperwork for 3 months because it was at the bottom of her desk. And when she called me after that accident, I realized if I'd had a seatbelt grabbing me, maybe it would have spread it into the rest of my body.
Right.
The infection was in one place and they were able to like heal it and take care of it. And so just know that we're being guided, we're loved, even when it feels like something terrible happened to us. There's some sort of lesson, there's some sort of guidance that's coming through.
Right. No, I appreciate you sharing that because you immediately took me to a memory of, it was probably 2005, 4, around there. And it was during Halloween. And a friend of mine, I was watching her daughter because I really had fresh off of college, and I needed to have some type of job because my student loans were going to come. And I was like, I need to pay them. And then she was like, Domenica, how about you watch Elizabeth? And I was said, okay, we can do that. We can bargain. She helped me out. I helped her out. And we were going to take her out one, I think it was like a Friday afternoon or evening, to the Harvest Carnival, for Halloween that weekend. And I remember getting cotton candy. I remember I just put it through a witch's hat on me, right? And as we were leaving, I remember thinking, oh, are you sure you want to leave right now? Like, we can wait a little bit longer. And she's like, no, let's just go. Because we were in her car. And I said, okay, fine. Well, it was an island that we had to cross to get to her car. So it was one street going one way. We crossed the island, stopped, looked both ways. And then finally we're going to be at her car. But in the process of this, I can remember like taking the cotton candy and like stopping, like eating the cotton candy, and then I went. But I remember seeing that there was nobody, like no cars were coming, and it was fine to cross. All of a sudden, I feel two hands across my back, and I tumbled, and I thought it was my friend that threw me. And I was like, why did you push me? Why'd you throw me? Like, I didn't understand what just happened. My witch's hat was like, 1 foot that way. My cotton candy was another foot that way. She was screaming her head off because all she saw when she turned around was me falling. She thought I got hit by the car that literally like just went quick. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. How did you wait? And then I was like, wait, you're over there. I'm over here. I don't know what just happened, but I literally felt you push me. And she was like, Domenica, how did you feel me pushing you when I'm over here? Like I pushed, La Niña out of the way. And I was like, it really took me a little bit to process, and there was no one behind me.
Yeah.
And I really very much like you, just every day wake up with that gratefulness of, even though I had this almost like experience that I really could have been very injured, I'm very grateful that I call it a God wink. It was like this moment that I was like, okay, Domenica, you're meant for something, significant here, because you just had this experience where you felt two hands push you, but nobody was behind you. Until this day, I still have a bruise, which I think is where the hubcap kind of grazed me as the car was moving forward or fast. And I'm like, okay, it happened because I have the evidence on my ankle, and bruises heal, right? But no, this one never healed, and it doesn't hurt. I feel like it's just this scar to remind me of why I'm here.
Yes. You weren't done with it. You weren't done with this world. And that's what I said when I crawled out. I said to my mom, we still have work to do.
Right.
Because my mom had a heart attack because of the actual seatbelt, and being shoved and being upside down, and broke 5 ribs. And so it's really, but for you to have that scar is a reminder, and is that feeling of like, you are protected, you are guided. Right. And there's something that you're here to do that you're already unfolding into.
Right.
Yay.
Yes. So I definitely, in honoring that, and I know very much like you, is just really just following that calling, right? Following that purpose, and always I feel like I'm always evolving to make it stronger and more clear for myself.
Yes. Yeah.
But I love it. Vanessa, oh my goodness, girl. So we are coming down to the end of our time together. I feel like we covered so much, but yet left so much that we need to talk about. So definitely, I hope that you can be our guest again for part 2.
Absolutely.
Because especially for the Latinx community, like there's so much of this that needs to be really like doing a deep dive and being brought to the table, because it's something that we don't talk about. And then especially when we dig into first generation, second generation, like we need to know what we're up against so we can have that clear path. And I feel like unless we talk about it and have a conversation about it, like things will be left unsaid, and they'll be like, just left there to have people think like they're taboo, or we just don't talk about it. But no, Like it is just a natural part of our DNA, who we are. We're honoring our ancestors. And really, like, just let's move that narrative forward of the saying that it's okay to talk about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you that last year, between April and November, I mean, I did almost 400 sessions of ancestral hypnosis healing. And so I think that we're all waking up. We're all like, enough already, enough already. So thank you for the work that you do, Domenica. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for having these brave conversations que en verdad necesitamos.
I know. No, thank you. So let everybody know, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you?
So I am on Instagram, the Biz Bruja, Bruja. I am also on Clubhouse, Vanessa Codorniu.
Yes.
My website is thebizbruja.com. And there's an Espanol also only, and there's also English courses. So you can find me there.
All right. I love it. So everyone, if you're listening or you're tuning in, we'll definitely have Vanessa's bio also on the show notes with the clickable links. So it will take you directly to all her websites, as she just mentioned. But until then, I thank you everyone for joining us. Vanessa, thank you for being our guest. And we are signing off with cafecito and conversation. So bye until next time. Bye, Vanessa. Thank you so much. All right. Love you. Thank you. And everyone, thank you for just being followers and being a part of this conversation. So we'll see you soon.